Imagine for a second that you're walking across a tightrope, but this isn't in a circus tent or anything.
Right, definitely not a safety net kind of situation.
No, not at all. You are suspended over this massive, just jagged fissure in the earth known as the Red Ravines.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And beneath you is a deadly drop onto these rusted iron stones. The trees clinging to the cliffs around you have leaves the color of, well, fresh blood.
That paints a really terrifying picture.
Right. And you're doing this whole balancing act while entirely surrounded by heavily armed warriors wearing thick furs. Their faces are painted with dark coal, and they are actively glaring at you.
Just waiting for you to slip.
Exactly. Muttering threats and practically begging for an excuse to push you over the edge to your death.
And your only crime in this scenario.
Your only crime is that you have silver scars in your eyes. Scars that mark you as a living, breathing weapon of mass destruction.
It is such a heavy opening image.
It really is. Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today, we are undertaking a massive mission.
We really are. We're going to untangle the dark, complex, and intensely romantic world of Heir of Twisted Lies by L.J. Andrews.
Which is just a brutal world, honestly.
Oh, absolutely brutal. It's a world that demands a really thorough unpacking.
Yeah, because this is the second book in the Broken Souls and Bones series.
Right, and if you thought you understood the rules of fantasy magic before this, I mean, this narrative just forces you to rethink literally everything.
It flips it all on its head.
It does. We are going to explore the 3 distinct kingdoms of Stigandra, the terrible burden of possessing a unique magic, and, well, how these characters forge their own destinies when their very souls are under constant attack.
We're pulling out all the lore, the political betrayals, and the mechanics of this world to give you a really comprehensive shortcut to understanding this epic landscape.
Because there is a lot to cover.
So much. And just to set the stage for you, we're dropping right into the aftermath of massive upheaval. King Dimir of Jorvandal is dead.
Finally. I mean, he was the ruthless monarch who kicked off so much of the misery in the first place.
Right. And our protagonist, Lyra Bien, who has this exceedingly rare craft called melding, is currently fleeing for her life into enemy territory.
Along with Roark Ashwood.
Yes, her protector, former captor, and lover, who is literally carrying a violently split soul inside his body. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do two.
Because Lyra is navigating that terrifying rope bridge I just described, trying to cross into Draven, and she is essentially public enemy number 1.
She is universally hated by these people.
Right, so why? What makes her magic so deeply offensive to them?
Well, to understand the sheer hostility directed at Lyra, we really have to look at the geopolitical map of Stigandra, because geography and magic are just intrinsically linked here.
Okay, so map it out for us.
You have 3 main kingdoms. First, there's Jorvandal in the north, which is the kingdom of bonecraft. Their magic is rigid, structural, and very militaristic.
Got it. Bonecraft in the north.
Then you have Myrda to the west, the kingdom of bloodcraft. And blood magic is visceral. It deals with life force, healing, biological manipulation.
That sounds intense.
It is. And finally, you have Draven in the east, which is the kingdom of soulcraft. The people there are deeply connected to the spiritual realm.
So they view the soul as something sacred, right?
Exactly. It's an untouchable, divine essence to them.
But Lyra doesn't actually belong to any of those specific disciplines, does she?
No, she doesn't. Lyra possesses melding craft. It's the rarest form of magic in Stigandra, which is physically marked by those striking silver scars in her eyes.
The ones that make her a target.
Right. Melding is basically the ability to fuse or combine the other distinct crafts. It's the connective tissue of the magic system.
But the tragedy of Lyra's existence is how that connective tissue has been, completely exploited.
Oh, absolutely. Under the coercion of the late King Dimir, her power was weaponized in just the most horrific way imaginable.
Yeah, and we need to talk about the physical mechanics of this, because it's really vital to understanding the political tension here.
It is.
When we say she was forced to weaponize her magic, what did that actually look like? Because she wasn't just, like, casting fireballs.
Oh no, far from it. King Dimir forced Lyra to take the souls of fallen warriors. Souls that were residing within their bones, and meld those soul-infused bones directly onto the bodies of living Jorvan soldiers.
That is so dark.
She was forced to physically and spiritually weld the dead to the living.
Hold on, I want to make sure I'm wrapping my head around the horror of this. Is she acting like a magical blacksmith here? Does she place a bone on a soldier's chest and just, fuse it into their rib cage?
Yeah, it's a deeply invasive metaphysical process. Her melding magic acts as a sort of spiritual solvent and binding agent.
Wow.
She has to draw the dormant soul out of the bone, connect it to the life force of the living soldier, and fuse the bone into their flesh as permanent armor.
Which has to be agonizing.
It is excruciating for the soldier, but the result is the creation of a berserker. They become virtually unstoppable, mindless killing machines, fueled by the rage and agony of the trapped soul attached to them.
Okay, well that explains literally everything about the scene on the rope bridge. You have the Draven Dark Watch, these elite warriors from the Kingdom of Soulcraft, a culture that reveres the sanctity of the spirit.
They hold it above everything else.
So they're looking at Lyra, and they don't see a young woman who was victimized and forced to do this against her will.
Not at all.
They see the ultimate blasphemer. They see a monster who enslaves souls to create abominations.
Exactly. To the Draven people, the weaponization of a soul is the highest possible form of sacrilege.
It's totally against their religion.
Because magic in Stigandra is not an abstract concept. It is the absolute foundation of their religious and political identity.
Right.
And because Lyra has the ability to manipulate the fundamental building blocks of their faith, she is feared and coveted in equal measure.
It puts her in a completely impossible situation. Think about it. If you have the power to create an invincible army, every king and warlord either wants to lock you in a deep vault, to use you for their own military camps.
Or they want to assassinate you immediately so their enemies can never capture you.
Exactly. You are essentially a living, breathing nuclear launch code.
That's a perfect way to put it.
There is no reality where you get to just retire to a quiet farm. So if the entire world wants to either exploit her or execute her, how does she actually survive that crossing into Dravenmoor?
Well, she survives because of the one man standing between her and the blades of the Dark Watch, which is Roark Ashwood.
Right, but Roark is not merely a bodyguard holding a shield.
No, his presence introduces one of the most complex magical afflictions in the entire lore.
He's a fascinating character.
He is. Roark is a Draven prince, the second son of Queen Elizabeth of Dravenmoor. But far more importantly, he is a Deladan, a split soul.
This concept of the Deladan is so interesting, and I really want to dig into the mechanics of it with you.
Let's do it.
Because in a lot of fantasy, you have characters struggling with an inner darkness, a sort of metaphorical demon on their shoulder. But this is not a metaphor.
No, it is an anatomical, spiritual reality for him. It's entirely literal.
How does that even happen?
When Roark was a young boy, he was subjected to a horrific ritual where his actual metaphysical soul was torn into two distinct pieces.
By his own people.
Yes. One piece is the man we know as Roark. The other piece is a dark, feral, brutal entity known as Skuldrak, which roughly translates to shadow assassin.
And they both live in his head.
They occupy the exact same physical body, but they are fundamentally at war with one another.
Okay, I have to push back on the lore here for a second, because the justification for this ritual completely baffled me.
It is pretty wild.
The Draven people consider the soul to be sacred. That is their whole cultural identity. Yet it was Roark's own mother, the Queen, along with the Draven Council, who performed this ritual.
To tear her own son's soul apart.
Right. How do they possibly justify committing the ultimate blasphemy against their own prince? Isn't that just complete hypocrisy?
It is massive hypocrisy, but it's justified through the lens of political terror and prophecy.
Like it usually is.
Exactly. When Roark and Lyra were children, long before she was forced to create the berserker armor, they formed a self-11, a soul bond.
Remember, Lyra is a melder.
Right. The Draven leadership was terrified of melders due to these ancient prophecies and historical conflicts. To the Queen and the Council, a Draven prince forming an unbreakable spiritual bond with a melder was a catastrophic threat to national security.
So they view this little girl not as a child, but as like an infiltrating virus.
Precisely. They believed the bond would inevitably corrupt Roark and bring ruin to Dravenmoor.
Wow.
And they couldn't just forbid him from seeing her because a Giselvan is a permanent metaphysical tether.
You can't just ground him.
No. So they decided the only way to sever the bond was to destroy the vessel holding it. They performed the Deladan rite to forcefully amputate the part of Roark's soul that was bonded to Lyra.
That is horrific.
They honestly believed they were saving the kingdom, and in their twisted logic, saving Roark from execution for treason.
We have to destroy your soul to save your life. That is such a chilling political rationalization.
It really is.
And the physical toll it took on him is just severe. When the normal half, Roark, is in control, he is entirely mute. The ritual literally ripped his voice away.
He communicates through this highly expressive, fluid sign language instead.
Right. But when the dark soul, Skuldrick, takes over, he can actually speak. Except his voice sounds like grinding stones in raw fury.
It's a brilliant manifestation of trauma by the author. The violence done to him is carved into his physical form. He has a permanent weeping scar on his throat where the soul was violently extracted.
Oh, that detail is so gross, but so effective.
Yeah, this wound never fully heals. It actually bleeds darker, thicker blood whenever Skuldrick is agitated or close to the surface.
So it's a constant visceral reminder of his mother's betrayal.
Every single day.
I was trying to find a good analogy for how Skuldrick operates within him. It's really tempting to use the classic Jekyll and Hyde comparison, where one is good and the other is pure evil.
But that doesn't quite fit here.
No, it doesn't. Skuldrick isn't trying to orchestrate bank heists or murder innocents for fun. It feels much more like a hyper-aggressive autoimmune system.
That is a much more accurate way to look at it, actually.
Right, because an autoimmune system is designed to protect the body, but when it becomes unregulated, it starts destroying the host in the process of trying to kill threats.
Exactly.
When they amputated that part of Roark's soul, they didn't destroy his connection to Lyra. They just condensed all of his protective instincts, his trauma, and his rage into a concentrated feral mass.
Skuldrick is the white blood cell that is willing to slaughter anything that comes near Lyra.
Yes. But he is so volatile that he is slowly destroying Roark's sanity to do it.
And we see that volatility constantly in the text. There is a deeply tense moment on their journey where Roark's oldest childhood friend, Gunter, reaches out and briefly touches Lyra.
Just to guide her along a path, right?
Yeah, just a casual touch. And in a fraction of a second, Roark has a blade pressed tight against Gunter's throat.
His best friend.
He is fully prepared to execute his best friend over a casual touch. Roark is perpetually fighting a war within his own mind just to keep the shadow assassin leashed.
Which creates such a uniquely stressful dynamic between Roark and Lyra. Because she is the anchor that keeps him grounded, but she is also the ultimate trigger for his violence.
She is the match and the water.
If anyone looks at her wrong, Skuldrick wants to bathe the room in blood. How do you even maintain any kind of intimacy when you're surrounded by a hostile army, and any sign of affection could trigger a massacre?
You find micro-expressions of devotion, and the author handles this beautifully with a specific physical gesture.
The tapping.
Yes, because Roark cannot speak, and because openly declaring his allegiance to her would cause the Dark Watch to execute them both on the spot, he communicates through touch.
It's so subtle.
He will casually rest his hand on her hip or her arm and tap 3 times. Tap, tap, tap.
Meaning, I am here, you are mine.
Exactly. It's a private language of survival. It reassures her that the man she loves is still in control, and it anchors him against the rising tide of Skuldrick's fury.
It's those tiny moments of quiet resilience that make the broader political conflict so compelling to me.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the Draven Council, the group of elders known as the Ulfr, they aren't blind. They know Lyra is in their territory, and they are demanding her immediate execution.
They view her as a walking plague.
So how do Lyra and Roark counter a legal mandate for her death from the highest authority in the land?
They use the only magic that outranks the council. The very bond the queen tried to destroy in the first place.
The Steleven.
The Steleven. We need to explore the cultural weight of this concept. In Dravenmoor, a soul bond isn't just a poetic term for a marriage or true love. It is a tangible, magical reality.
You can actually see it, right?
Yes, it manifests as a golden, luminous thread connecting 2 spirits. And here is the miracle that defies the queen's cruelty.
I love this part.
Despite the Deladin ritual, despite having his soul ripped apart, the bond between Roark and Lyra survived.
It was battered and submerged in trauma, but the thread did not snap.
And this survival creates a massive legal loophole. In Draven society, a sealed soul bond is the absolute highest sacred truth.
It supersedes mortal laws, council decrees, and even royal commands.
Exactly. If a stolen is formally and legally sealed by a soul weaver, it becomes untouchable. To harm one half of a sealed pair is to invite the wrath of the gods and to tear at the very fabric of Draven religion.
It is a profound political checkmate. By sealing the bond, they force the very religious zealots who want to execute Lyra to become her sworn protectors.
Which is incredibly ironic. If the Dark Watch kills her after the bond is sealed, they condemn their own prince to spiritual death and violate their own core tenets.
But sealing a bond while under house arrest, surrounded by guards who want you dead, is no easy feat.
No, it requires absolute secrecy, and the scene where they accomplish this is steeped in this heavy, suffocating tension.
They manage to retreat to Roark's childhood bedroom in the Draven royal house. Think about the psychological weight of that setting alone.
It's massive. This is the room he lived in before his life was destroyed, before his mother betrayed him.
And into this room steps Gunter, Roark's friend, who happens to be a trained soul weaver.
Gunter acts as the officiant for this desperate ceremony. I want to highlight the physical mechanics of this sealing because it isn't just exchanging vows.
It's way more literal.
A soul weaver physically interacts with the metaphysical threads. Gunter has to reach into their spiritual auras, draw out the golden thread of their bond, and weave it into a permanent, unbreakable knot.
He is essentially suturing their souls together in a way that can never be undone.
Right.
I want you, the listener, to put yourself in that room for a second. Think about the ultimate act of trust here. If you are Lyra, the gravity of what you are doing is monumental.
There's no going back.
Your only path to safety in this hostile kingdom is to legally and permanently bind your existence to a man who turns into a shadow assassin. You are accepting Skuldrek as a fundamental part of your own life.
And when Gunter pulls those threads tight, what does that actually feel like for her? Does she suddenly, hear Roark's thoughts?
That's what I was wondering too.
Well, it's less about telepathy and more about emotional osmosis. Once the bond is sealed, the barrier between their internal worlds becomes permeable.
Oh.
Lyra actually begins to feel the darker impulses of Skuldrek bleeding into her own consciousness. She starts to experience flashes of his raw bloodlust, his suspicion, his simmering rage.
That is a terrifying intimacy. It fundamentally alters her emotional baseline.
It's a massive risk. She is diluting her own sense of self to merge with his trauma.
But this merging also grants her an extraordinary new capability, right?
Yes, because she is a melder, someone who can fuse different types of magic, and because she is now deeply bonded to a powerful soul crafter, her magic evolves.
She gains the ability to fully enter the mirror realm.
The mirror realm is a crucial piece of the lore. It is the metaphysical space where souls reside, and it's specifically where Skuldrek retreats when Roark is in control of their shared body.
How does the book describe it?
It's described as a cold, decaying, shadowy reflection of the physical world. The colors are muted, the air is stagnant, and it is populated by the echoes of the dead.
It sounds like purgatory, but like overlaid on top of the real world.
That's exactly it. And Lyra realizes that this realm isn't just a hiding place for Skuldrek, it's an archive of truth.
If she can access the souls of the dead, she can bypass all the political lies happening in the physical world.
Because they desperately need answers about the past, specifically about the death of Roark's older brother, Prince Nivek, who was murdered years ago.
So they decide to conduct a spiritual seance within this mirror realm.
Right, which requires a specific catalyst. In this magic system, the soul leaves an imprint on the physical remains, specifically the bone.
So using small fragments of bone, Lyra utilizes her newly awakened soul sight to summon the spirits of the fallen.
The sensory details of this summoning are so eerie. She has to focus her melding craft, pulling the ambient soul magic around her, and coax these spirits out of the shadows.
And she actually succeeds. She manages to summon the soul of Prince Nivek.
The brother who, we learn, actually saved her life when she was a child.
Yeah, that detail was wild. And she also summons the soul of Roark's father, the late King Vishan.
And the truth these spirits reveal completely shatters their understanding of Draven history.
They uncover a conspiracy of massive proportions. For years, the official narrative was that enemies or rogue factions were responsible for the tragedies in the royal family.
But King Vishan and Prince Nivek reveal the true architect of their downfall, which is Verki.
Verki, Roark's uncle, the king's own brother, and the father of Lyra's friend, Emmy.
Yes. Verki was not just an overly conservative council member. He was a master manipulator who orchestrated the systematic assassination of his own family.
That is ice cold.
He murdered the king. He murdered Prince Nivek. And perhaps most maliciously, he was the voice whispering in Queen Elizabeth's ear.
Oh, man.
He manipulated her fear of the prophecy to convince her to perform the Deladin ritual on Roark.
So he didn't just want to kill his rivals. He wanted to mutilate them spiritually so they could never challenge him.
Exactly. Verki wanted the throne. But to get it, He had to eliminate the king, the firstborn heir, and ensure the second-born Roark was deemed a cursed abomination unfit to rule.
He even banished his own wife because her specific magical craft allowed her to see glimpses of his treacherous desires.
He systematically pruned his own family tree with poison and paranoia.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though. What fascinates me about Verki is the psychology of his hypocrisy.
Let's hear it.
If you look at how he operates in the public sphere, he is the loudest, most aggressive voice, preaching about the purity of Draven magic.
Oh yeah, he never shuts up about it.
Right. He constantly rails against the corrupting influence of the Dwarven bonecrafters and the abomination of the melder. He cloaks himself in religious righteousness.
He acts like the ultimate patriot defending sacred traditions.
Exactly. It's a very common authoritarian tactic. He uses the language of faith and purity to distract from his own profound corruption.
It's like a corporate hostile takeover, but instead of liquidating assets, he's liquidating his own family's souls.
Yes. It's like a politician who campaigns strictly on family values and sanctity, but behind closed doors, he is literally orchestrating the murder of his own brother and nephew.
He doesn't actually believe a single word of the doctrine he preaches.
Not a word. The soul isn't sacred to him. It's just a vulnerability he can exploit in others. He weaponizes the faith of his people to consolidate absolute power. He is entirely morally bankrupt.
He is a terrifying portrait of intimate betrayal. When the monster hunting you is your own uncle, the man who sat at your dinner table, the betrayal cuts so much deeper than if it were a foreign king.
But as devastating as Verki's treason is to Dravenmore, his ambitions are ultimately quite localized.
Right, he just wants to rule one kingdom.
While Verki is playing local politics, the narrative pulls back the curtain on an antagonist who is playing for the fate of the entire continent.
We have to talk about Fady.
Also known as Balder, the Dwarven melder who started this entire nightmare for Lyra.
The man who everyone firmly believed was dead.
But of course he faked his own death, manipulated the assassination of King Demir, and is now operating from the shadows in Jorvindal.
And Fady makes Verki look like a petty pickpocket.
Seriously. Verki wants a throne. Fady wants to become a god.
To understand Fady's endgame, we have to delve into the deepest mythology of Stigandra. We have to talk about the Wanderer King.
Okay, let's establish this lore. Who exactly is the Wanderer King, and why are his bones so important?
According to the ancient histories of the world, the Wanderer King was the progenitor. He was the very first king and the original source of all magical craft.
So he had all the magic.
He possessed an unfiltered, absolute power that encompassed bone, blood, and soul. But the lore states that this absolute power was deeply corrupting.
Of course it was.
His strength was so immense and his reign became so terrifying that upon his death, his skeleton was dismantled. Yeah, his bones were scattered and hidden across the farthest reaches of the world to prevent anyone from ever reassembling that level of absolute, unified magic.
It's the classic dismembered god trope, but with a really terrifying modern application here.
Right.
Because Fady isn't looking for these bones to put them in a museum. He wants to use his melding craft to physically fuse the ancient bones of the Wanderer King directly onto his own skeleton.
He believes that by grafting the progenitor's bones onto his own body, he will absorb the residual soul and the unfiltered power of the first king.
Which is insane.
He wants to overwrite his own humanity with divine magic, effectively rendering himself an immortal, unstoppable deity who can subjugate all three kingdoms simultaneously.
But there is a massive biological and magical hurdle he has to overcome. You can't just slap a 1,000-year-old god bone onto your arm and expect it to work.
No, his body would reject it.
And more importantly, the bones are hidden via ancient soul magic that he cannot penetrate. He needs a key.
He needs a very specific, highly refined tool to both locate the bones and stabilize the melding process.
He's Lyra.
Lyra's specific variation of soul sight, the ability that allows her to navigate the mirror realm and see the threads of magic so clearly, is the only thing that can locate the scattered remains.
So that's why he's so obsessed.
Fady is relentless in his pursuit of her because she's the missing component in his engine of apotheosis.
Which leads us to one of the most jaw-dropping reveals I have ever encountered in a deep dive like this.
Oh, this part is huge.
Fleeing from Verki in the east and Fady in the north, Lyra and Roark managed to reach the unfettered lands.
Which is a neutral, lawless territory outside the jurisdiction of the three kingdoms.
There they seek out a seer named Gamel, hoping for some guidance on how to defeat these overlapping threats. And Gamel sits them down and delivers a truth that completely rewrites Lyra's entire existence.
Gamel reveals the true nature of Lyra's lineage. Fady is not just a rival melder who happens to need her skills. Fady is Lyra's biological father.
I want to pause and just sit with the horrific implications of that, because it reframes everything that happened to her in the first book.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it changes the entire context of her suffering.
It really does.
Decades ago, Fady knew of a prophecy stating that a child of his bloodline would be born with the unique power to unite all craft. He didn't view this child as a person to be loved.
He viewed her as a battery.
He viewed her as the ultimate resource for his ascension. He spent years hunting for his own daughter, and when he finally tracked her to the rural, peaceful village where she was being raised by her loving adoptive family house, Bien, he didn't knock on the door to introduce himself.
No. He orchestrated a massacre.
He ordered the bloody, wholesale slaughter of her adoptive parents, her friends, her entire village, simply to flush her out of hiding so she could be captured and put to work creating berserker armor.
He murdered the people who actually loved her, just to harvest her as a magical tool.
It is the ultimate objectification. He strips her of all humanity. And when we look at this revelation alongside Roark's history, a profound thematic parallel emerges.
The core of this story is a deep exploration of generational trauma.
It really is. Both Lyra and Roark are fundamentally broken by parents who refuse to see them as children.
Fady viewed Lyra strictly as a utility, a means to achieve godhood. Queen Elizabeth viewed Roark strictly as a political liability.
An error in the system that needed to be surgically and violently corrected for the sake of the kingdom's stability.
Both sets of parents used the justification of destiny or the greater good to commit unspeakable child abuse.
And that shared foundation of betrayal is the bedrock of their Seleven. Their soul bond isn't just based on romantic attraction.
Right, it's rooted in the profound, unspoken understanding of what it means to be hollowed out by the people who were supposed to protect you.
They were the only two people in the world who truly comprehend the unique agony of the other's existence.
Which makes their actions in the unfettered lands so incredibly poignant, because they have every reason to be bitter, selfish, and paranoid.
They have been taught by their parents that power is the only thing that matters, and that family is expendable.
But when they are presented with a choice to seize power for themselves, they do the exact opposite.
We see this clearly when they make another shocking discovery in the neutral zone. Through Gamel, they find out that Roark's murdered older brother, Prince Nivek, had a secret life before Verki assassinated him.
What?
Yeah, living in obscurity in the unfettered lands are Nivek's widow, a woman named Jordis, and his teenage son, Sindri the Wild.
This is a geopolitical earthquake. Because Roark, having survived his brother and father, technically has a claim to the Draven throne, assuming they can depose Verki.
But the existence of Sindri changes the entire line of succession.
Sindri is the true, legitimate firstborn heir of Dravenmoor.
And to complicate matters, Sindri has inherited his father's potent soulcraft. He isn't just a figurehead. He is a powerful magical entity in his own right.
The way Roark and Lyra react to this discovery is, for me, the moral thesis of the book.
Let's look at the scene where they first encounter Sindri. The boy and his mother are living in abject poverty.
Right.
Sindri is being physically harassed and threatened by a local thug named Brock, to whom they owe a substantial debt. Brock is looming over them, threatening violence.
And Lyra and Roark do not hesitate. They don't pull back to strategize how to use this boy for political leverage.
They step right into the confrontation.
They use their remaining Draven gold to immediately buy Sindri's debt, dissolving Brock's hold over them. But it's what Roark does next that is so powerful.
Roark, this man carrying a shadow assassin, a man who has been tortured and exiled by his own kingdom, looks at this teenage boy and immediately places him under the absolute protection of his own craft.
He yields. Without a second thought, Roark acknowledges Sindri as the true heir to the throne.
Contrast this with Verki. Verki murdered his own brother and nephew to steal a crown. Roark, who has suffered infinitely more, finally has a path to absolute power, and his very first instinct is to build a shield around his newly discovered nephew and walk away from the throne.
He actively chooses to break the cycle of familial violence. It is a stunning rejection of the toxic legacy they inherited.
It really makes you think about the theme of chosen family versus blood lineage.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you look at the track record in Stigandr, blood ties are a curse.
Lyra's blood father slaughtered her home. Roark's blood mother mutilated his soul. Roark's blood uncle assassinated his brother.
Blood is nothing but a conduit for betrayal for these characters. But look at the coalition they build around themselves. Their strength comes entirely from a family they have chosen. forged in the fires of shared trauma.
Exactly. Look at who is standing with them in the unfettered lands. You have Prince Thane of Jorvindel, a bone crafter who, by all historical metrics, should be Roark's mortal enemy.
You have Princess Yrsa of Myrda, representing the Bloodcrafters. You have Kale, Lyra's fiercely loyal foster brother who survived the massacre.
You have Emmy, the bone crafter, who actively defied her own abusive father, Verki, to help them.
This is a ragtag, diverse group of misfits, outcasts, and former enemies. They have absolutely no genetic reason to trust each other, but their loyalty is absolute.
They are a found family that provides the emotional and physical safety that their bloodlines denied them.
And the integrity of that found family is about to be tested against the most insidious magic in the world.
Because Fady has not given up.
No, he tracks them down, and in this chaotic, desperate confrontation, Fady manages to spring a devastating trap.
When Roark's darker soul, Skuldrick, lashes out and physically makes contact with Fady, the Jorvan mastermind triggers a dormant spell.
He infects Roark with an ancient, lethal blood curse.
The mechanics of this curse are so deeply cruel because of how it interacts with Roark's specific trauma. It is not just a poison that makes you cough or gives you a fever.
Right. The curse is designed to attack the metaphysical structure of the Deladin.
We have to understand how a split soul operates to understand why this curse is lethal. Roark and Skuldrick exist in a delicate, compartmentalized balance.
They're separated.
The cuss acts as a violent magical tether. It grabs hold of Skuldrick, the dark, volatile remnant, and forcefully yanks him back into Roark's main spiritual body.
I want to break down why that is so dangerous. Because, at first glance, if his soul was split, wouldn't putting it back together be a good thing? Wouldn't that cure him?
No, because the soul wasn't cleanly divided. It was violently torn and left to fester for decades. Skuldrick has grown into an entity of pure rage and shadow.
So they don't fit together anymore.
Exactly. Forcing them back together without proper, delicate soul weaving is like trying to shove a jagged, infected shard of glass back into an open wound and sewing it shut.
Oh, that is a horrible image.
The sheer friction and incompatibility of forcing the dark soul to fully inhabit the physical host body acts as a rapid, lethal neurotoxin.
It is a brilliant sociopathic strategy by Fady. He knows he can't beat Skuldrick in a straight physical fight, so he turns Skuldrick into the very poison that kills Roark.
And Fady calculates that if Roark dies slowly and agonizingly, Lyra will be so emotionally shattered and defenseless that she will easily surrender.
So Roark collapses, the fever spikes, the dark magic is literally boiling in his veins, and the found family has to watch their protector rapidly deteriorate.
They're completely out of their depth. They don't have a soul weaver powerful enough to counteract a blood curse.
But Fady made a critical miscalculation here. He accounted for the bone crafters, the soul crafters, and the melder. He completely underestimated the quietest member of their group.
Princess Yrsa of Myrda.
This is such a triumphant pivot. Up until this exact moment, Princess Yrsa was believed to be a squib, essentially.
Right, she was a royal born into the kingdom of Bloodcraft with absolutely no magical ability. It was a source of immense shame and isolation for her.
But as Roark is dying on the floor of their tent, Lyra uses her soul sight. She looks at Yrsa not with her physical eyes, but with her magical perception, and she sees the truth.
Yrsa is not devoid of magic. She is a vastly powerful bloodcrafter, directly descended from an ancient, almost mythological god queen's lineage.
Her magic wasn't absent, it was just dormant.
Buried deep within her, likely suppressed by the intense psychological pressure and trauma of her upbringing in a kingdom that demanded perfection.
The urgency of Roark's impending death acts as the catalyst that shatters those mental blocks. Yrsa steps forward, realizing the sheer magnitude of the power thrumming in her own veins.
And the healing ritual that follows is, in my opinion, the absolute emotional climax of this deep dive. Let's set the scene inside that tent.
It is intensely claustrophobic and desperate. Roark is thrashing on the ground, his skin burning with the dark poison of the tethering curse.
Yrsa takes charge. She pulls out a stone mortar and pestle and begins rapidly grinding specific potent healing herbs, but her bloodcraft requires fuel.
It requires a catalyst of raw life force to overpower the ancient curse. She needs blood.
But not just any blood. She needs blood infused with devotion, power, and diverse magic.
And here is where the theme of chosen family becomes a literal, physical mechanic of survival. Yrsa cannot generate enough power on her own, so she looks around the tent.
And one by one, without hesitation, every single member of this fractured alliance steps up to the mortar.
Prince Thane of Jorvandal, a man raised to despise Draven, takes a blade and slices his palm, letting his blood drip into the bowl.
Kale, Lyra's foster brother, who has every reason to resent Roark for the danger he brings, offers his blood. Emmy, the bone crafter who fed her father's tyranny, adds hers.
Gunter, the loyal soul weaver, even Queen Elizabeth, who has tentatively joined them, offers her blood in a desperate bid to undo a fraction of the harm she caused her son.
They all bleed together. They mix the blood of Jorvandal, Myrda, and Draven. URSA takes this impossible mixture, this synthesis of rival kingdoms and distinct crafts, and she weaves it into a single, overwhelming surge of blood magic.
She presses it into Roark, and the spell acts as a battering ram, flushing the dark poison from his veins, stabilizing the split soul, and pulling him back from the brink of death.
It is the ultimate repudiation of Fadi's worldview.
Yes.
Fadi operates on the principle of isolation and solitary supremacy. He created the curse alone. But the curse is defeated by the collective sacrifice and radical devotion of a diverse community.
I am continually blown away by how the author uses the magic system to enforce the emotional themes here. Instead of a magical antidote found in a dusty book, the cure is the collective love of their found family acting as a spiritual immune system to fight off the father's toxic legacy.
It tells the reader that the trauma inflicted by the previous generation's ambition can only be neutralized by the unified chosen bonds of the current generation.
It is a profoundly moving sequence.
And it is a necessary crucible because saving Roark is only the prelude. The survival of their leader galvanizes this alliance for the massive, multi-factional war that immediately follows.
The fate of Stigandria is decided on the battlefield. We have to talk about the sheer scale of this climax.
It's massive.
You have the Allied forces, this unprecedented coalition of Dravenmoor's loyal Dark Watch, Jorvandal's Stavguard led by Prince Thane, and the fierce warriors of Myrda. They all converge.
They clash in a brutal, chaotic war against Fadi's magically corrupted soldiers and the traitorous faction of the Dark Watch led by Verki.
It is a convergence of every magical discipline we've discussed. You have bone armor clashing against blood-enhanced healing, while soul weavers try to disrupt the spiritual morale of the enemy.
But amidst the massive troop movements, the narrative smartly focuses on the intimate resolutions of our core character arcs.
Specifically, the downfall of Verki. The man who poisoned the royal family from the inside is finally cornered and defeated.
And the death of Verki isn't just a political victory, it is a profound moment of closure.
It brings peace to his daughter, Emmy, who has lived her entire life under the shadow of his psychological and physical abuse. She is finally free to exist without his judgment.
And while Verki falls, Fadi's immediate plans to harvest the ancient bones are thwarted. The Allied forces manage to disrupt his operations and scatter his corrupted army.
However, Fadi himself manages to escape into the shadows,
signaling that while this battle is won, the overarching war for the soul of the continent is far from over.
But the immediate threat is neutralized, and that allows for a massive structural shift in the political landscape of Stigandra. The old isolationist regimes are dead.
And we see this new era ushered in beautifully in the aftermath of the battle. There is a grand, joyous, and explicitly rebellious wedding between Emi, the disgraced Draven bonecrafter, and Princess URSA of Myrda.
That union is highly symbolic. By officially marrying, they are binding the kingdoms of Dravenmoor and Myrda together in a way that defies centuries of prejudice, isolation, and rigid tradition.
It is a public declaration that the future of magic lies in integration, not segregation.
And then we look at Roark and Lyra. The two people who have spent their entire lives hiding in the shadows, running across rope bridges, being treated as abominations, pariahs, or military assets.
Right.
In the aftermath of the war, they are recognized by the leaders of all the realms, Jorvandal, Dravenmoor, Myrda, and the Unfettered Lands, as the ultimate arbiters of Stigandra's future. They are elevated to become the king and queen of craft.
This raises an important question, though. How do two people who have spent their entire lives running from power and prophecy handle becoming the absolute authorities of their world?
They know intimately how authority corrupts. They watched it rot King Damir's mind. They watched it twist Verki into a monster who murdered his own blood.
They watched it consume Fadi until he lost all trace of humanity. Now they are the ones sitting on the highest thrones.
It's an incredible pivot for the series, moving them from hunted fugitives to sovereign rulers. So let's take a breath and recap the staggering distance we've covered today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We started in the damp, freezing black fjords and the treacherous red ravines, with Lyra terrified for her life, viewing her magic as an inescapable curse.
We navigated the brutal mechanics of bone melding, the tragedy of the Deladin ritual, and the haunting truths hidden in the mirror realm.
We witness the devastating impact of parental ambition parents willing to slaughter entire villages or physically tear their children's souls in half just to maintain control.
But against that overwhelming darkness, we saw the triumphant, defiant power of the Syldelvan and the incredible healing resilience of a found family willing to bleed for one another.
At its core, this installment is a story about the reclamation of agency. Lyra reclaims her magic from the kings who would weaponize it.
Roark reclaims his soul from the mother who broke it. Together, they reclaim their future from a prophecy and a bloodline that intended to destroy them.
But as we wrap up this deep dive into Heir of Twisted Lies, there is a shadow looming over their victory.
Oh, definitely.
Lyra and Roark have successfully united the realms. They have defeated the immediate treason of Verki and Mir. They survived the lethal tethering of the Blood Curse. But Fady is still out there, alive and plotting.
And more importantly, the Wanderer King's bones, the scattered remnants of the very first, most corrupting magical power in the history of the world, are still hidden out there in the dark.
The ultimate prize remains on the board, and the game is escalating.
Exactly.
So here's the final thought I want to leave you with, something to mull over as you process everything we've discussed. We know that the Wanderer King's unfiltered, absolute power was enough to fracture the world for generations, turning father against child and kingdom against kingdom.
It ruined everything.
So what will happen to Lyra and Roark when they inevitably find those bones? What happens to their hard-won, unbreakable bond when they finally hold that absolute world-ending magic in their own hands?
Will their shared trauma and their deep love be enough of an anchor to withstand the temptation?
Or will absolute power inevitably corrupt the very soul bond that saved them? It is a terrifying prospect and a brilliant setup for the next chapter. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material.
It was a great discussion.
We mapped the geography of hostility, dissected the anatomy of a split soul, and witnessed the profound mechanics of community healing. Until next time, hold your chosen family close, keep your soul intact, and always question the magic you are told to fear.